In this illusion, you see the bird inside the cage, but it only happens 25% of the time. The other 75%, it is your brain that places the bird in the cage. Stop the video several times and check for yourself. Today we use minions, fishes, the 7 dwarfs, a bird in a cage, and a little bit of behavioral neuroscience. All that to illustrate how your brain creates this illusion and when it breaks. And in case you want to create your own version of the illusion, we will be happy to share our app with you. Let's start. If minions are laughing all the time, why then is Stuart sad? If you pause the video, you will find that Stuart is alone in a different frame than Kevin and Bob. His sadness is justified. To explain how the brain fuses two images into one illusory composite, we need first to talk about how we see. But before we move on, let's make Stuart happy again. You know how, right? For vision to work, an electrical activity in millions of visual neurons in the visual cortex of the brain is required. The sequence of events is like this one. 1. A bird inside a cage is placed on your visual field. 2. Its image is projected onto the retina in the back of the eye. 3. Neurons in the retina fire action potentials in response to the image. 4. Action potentials reach the visual cortex and make neurons there to fire their own action potentials. 5. Finally, an image is reconstructed based on the activity of millions of neurons and you perceive the bird in the cage. The activity of neurons in the visual cortex depends on the activity of neurons in the eyes, where we go next. But first, a challenge. Your job is to guess whether you are looking at the bird and the cage as two images in separate frames or as a composite in the same frame. Ready? Go! Got it? Try again. Better? Okay, one last time. Did you get it right? It's not easy, isn't it? How exactly the two images fuse into one? This illusion is mainly about time. We need to understand how the bird image can generate an activity on visual neurons long enough to be coincident with the activity of the cage image coming later. The explanation focuses on the retina at the back of the eye because cells there play a major role in generating this illusion. The three main layers of cells in the retina are photoreceptors, rods and cones, bipolar cells, and ganglion cells. The ganglion cells send visual information from the eye to the brain in the form of action potentials. But the action potentials in the ganglion cells depend on the electrical activity in the bipolar cells. And the activity of bipolar cells in turn depend on the electrical activity in the photoreceptor cells, where the photons making the image are detected. Here comes the catch. Regardless of how short the light stimulus is, the duration of the photoreceptor's response is at least 50 milliseconds. Therefore, if the time interval between two images is less than 50 milliseconds, the individual responses will overlap and there will be little chance for a temporal separation of the images. Because frequency equals 1 divided by period, 50 milliseconds, corresponds to 20 Hz or 20 frames per second. That is the reason why at frame rates above 20 frames per second, it is almost impossible to distinguish the time window of the two separate images, and the bird gets in the cage. What about fishes? Okay, this video has a frame rate of 60 frames per second. Therefore, each frame is visible for about 17 milliseconds. Following our rationale, we should be able to add a third image and the illusion should hold. Hopefully you can see just that in our small fish, middle fish, big fish illusion. One thing is clear though, there must be a limit in the number of images we could use for this visual illusion. It is time to find out with the help of 7 dwarfs. How many images your brain can put together for the illusion to work depend on several factors. At 60 frames per second, 2 and 3 dwarfs make the illusion work, and 7 breaks it. Could you help me get more data? Please let me know in the comments what is your breaking number.